So today I want to talk about my journey into nutritional ketosis. Ketosis, if you don't know what that means, I can just let you know. Basically, your body normally, or not normally, the way we usually feed ourselves, our bodies use glucose for um, energy. But when you are in nutritional ketosis, instead of manufacturing glucose for your brain to function on, for your muscles to function on, your liver switches to making ketones and specifically beta hydroxybutyrate. This ketone is incredibly efficient when processed by mitochondria for energy. But it takes some time for your body to switch over into making enough of these um, uh, enzymes in the liver to make a lot of ketones, and for your muscle cells and brain cells to get used to processing the beta hydroxybutyrate for ketones. And so there's this transition period of going from glucose dependent to beta hydroxybutyrate dependent. And today I'm going to talk to you about my journey through that whole process. First of all, why did I even bother going into nutritional ketosis? I actually didn't originally set out with that intention, oddly enough. I am in my early 50s and I noticed that I was starting to get some visceral fat. That means around my waist area, my belly was starting to get bigger. And this wasn't just like superficial fat, it was also internal. And that really started to make me worry because I'm a doctor and I know that visceral fat is not healthy. And there's also a strong family history of diabetes, and I didn't want to go down that pathway. So I committed to doing a metabolic reset. And I use products regularly that are nutritional supplements by a company called Life Plus. I love these products and I strongly recommend them. If you're interested in learning more about them, you can follow the link in the description. But anyway, the community within Life Plus had developed a metabolic reset, which used some of their products to help support the transition into a ketosis state, with the idea of resetting the hypothalamus weight set point. So your hypothalamus is, the part of your brain that regulates all of the hormones in your body. And so when you're trying to get the hypothalamus to reset its weight set point, right? That's the weight that your body is going to defend over everything else to maintain. What you're doing is going into nutritional ketosis. And the first 3 weeks of this reset were extremely low calorie. I mean, I don't know, I think it was like 700 calories a day. That was the maximum. But it actually is not so hard to do because you're eating a lot of protein. So it's a protein sparing type of diet. And I felt good about that because I know that it's very important to have enough protein in my diet to maintain muscle. Especially as you age, you actually need more protein to maintain that muscle because the muscle doesn't like to stay there unless you use it and you feed it. So, right, protein sparing, very low calorie diet. And at first I was doing what I thought was a good job, but nothing was budging. And I was like, what else do I need to be looking at? And that's when I realized, oh, I should be checking my ketones. So I started checking my ketones in my urine and nothing was shifting. And so then I started looking a little bit more carefully because the protocol specifically said you have to really have low carbohydrate intake. And there was a very limited list of what carbohydrates were allowed. And I was really big on kefir, eating kefir at that time. And my kefir had lactose in it. And I wasn't thinking about it that way because I was thinking, oh, well, it's digested because the bacteria and the yeast and the kefir grains are using the lactose. But actually, there's still a little bit of residual lactose. And I guess I was having enough of that, I was still not entering nutritional ketosis. Finally, after day 5, I had gotten into nutritional ketosis. And then, because I wasn't originally thinking about like, oh, I'm gonna do a ketogenic diet, I wasn't, and I was just basically, taking these supplements that were recommended, which had minerals, fiber, and a lot of other vitamins that I might be missing out on, right? Because of the limited intake. So I I was like doing well, feeling good, losing weight, losing my belly fat. And then suddenly I hit this wall. I was exhausted. I didn't know what came over me. So I did some research and found out that I had entered the ketosis flu or the ketogenic diet flu. What does that mean? Well, when you get into nutritional ketosis, your kidneys start excreting a lot of minerals, sodium, magnesium, and you really have to make an extra effort to replete those minerals. And I hadn't paid that much attention to it. So as soon as I did, and I started taking extra magnesium and extra sodium, like extra salting my food and everything, I recovered within like, I think it was 36 hours. I was back to my normal state. So that was lesson number 1. Don't go into this, blindly. Have a plan to make sure that you're not only eating appropriately, but supplementing enough of the electrolytes, especially magnesium and sodium. Sodium is very important if you're exercising, and I think that that was what tipped me over the edge was that I did a long hike that day or the day before, and the next day I was wiped out. Anyway, um, after this 3-week period of extremely low calorie, basically eating just green leafy vegetables and protein and a few other things were allowed as well, came the reintroduction of fats. And woohoo! That felt great. And actually, my ketone levels went up as well because fats that are taken in, that you ingest are very easily converted into ketones by your liver. And there are some fats that get converted into ketones very quickly. These are the medium chain triglycerides, or MCTs. Coconut oil has a lot of them. I was mainly taking fats in the form of olive oil. I made mayonnaise and enjoyed it, homemade mayonnaise with olive oil. And also dairy, a lot of dairy fat, which was always part of my diet anyway. That's how I eat. Um, the next lesson, though, came in the form of, I guess you would call it a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, although I'm not sure if it was small intestinal. It was definitely fermentation overload. And remember, I told you I had been taking a lot of kefir. Well, I had reduced the amount of kefir that I had been taking, but I was still taking some kefir. I had only increased the amount of straining that I did of the kefir so that it really had no lactose left. But there was still the bacteria and the yeast from that fermentation process. And together with high protein intake, um, I really stressed out my digestive system. And as a gastroenterologist, you think I would have known or I should have known. Anyway, it was a little bit messy and not the most pleasant experience. I don't wish it on anyone. But if I had to do it differently, next time I don't know if I would have been able to do anything differently. I just didn't realize how sensitive my gut would be to so many changes in my diet. Honestly, I think that that's the honest truth. I don't think that I would have been able to predict that this was going to happen. But anyway, I did have to go into a very low FODMAP diet. Those are foods with, oh gosh, fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. I think that's what it stands for. I don't remember right now. Anyway, low FODMAP diet, that means I had to limit or actually completely remove eating cruciferous vegetables, which I had been enjoying up until then. Um, Definitely no legumes, but I wasn't eating those anyway because of low carbohydrate diet. And um, yeah, of course, lactose was already taken out. Anyway, there are a bunch of things in the low fat FODMAP diet um, that you can't really eat, and so I was doing that pretty strictly for 2 weeks to get my body back in a good rhythm. I'm there now. I don't think I would have been encouraged to do this video if I had not recovered. And I am in the reintroduction phase of foods that have some, yeah, fermentable sugars in them because most of them are really healthy. Unfortunately, they don't always go well with our GI tract. And that's a story for another day. I think that has a lot to do with environmental toxins, could possibly have to do with your stomach's hydrochloric acid production, and whether or not that's enough. Um, yeah. Anyway, um, why am I still doing this? That's a good question, right? So, as I got into this ketosis state, I started doing more reading about what are the benefits. And the benefits are really uh, there are so many benefits for the brain, for the metabolism, your muscles. Basically, the beta hydroxybutyrate is a cleaner burning fuel for your cells. Fewer oxidative, um, uh, yeah, there are fewer oxidants that are produced, so you have less oxidative stress and therefore a lower need for antioxidants. Um, and you have an overall quieting. I wrote a post about this on Substack, an overall quieting of the mind so that the thoughts that are, normally like just going, 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 kind of ease. Yeah, the clarity of thinking is definitely noticeable, less brain fog. And I think that the only thing that interfered with that brain fog was the fact that I was having some GI issues at one point. But otherwise, it's been a very enjoyable state. And what I didn't realize was, or I thought it would come later, but it actually came pretty early, maybe about 6 weeks into being in stable ketosis. uh, I had so much energy, and I'm able to, like the other day, I went hiking with my partner. We decided to go out without having eaten anything. So we were just on the previous day's meal. We had some coffee in the morning, and we were able, both of us, to hike with so much energy, no hunger, going uphill in the mountains here in my region it was easy. Yeah, I usually do not feel like it's easy going uphill, but I had so much energy. I was like, this is amazing. I love it. And then following on to that, normally after such a long extended hike, I would feel some soreness the next day. So the hike, just to give you a sense, I mean, it wasn't crazy, crazy, but it was 700 meters of elevation and a total of 14 kilometers that we walked. Uh, no soreness. It was beautiful. So those are two really good aspects of being in nutritional ketosis. And I love the way I feel, actually. I don't want to change it. So I've been really creative about cooking finding new recipes. I figured out how to make a pizza that I could enjoy. There are lots of options on lots of creators on YouTube with ketogenic recipes, some better than others, but some are very easy. And so, like, I found a bread that I could use that's based on, like, yeah, egg whites and psyllium husk and almond flour. Easy to make. Um, yeah. Anyway, I think that's all I wanted to share today for my journey with ketosis. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can also share your experience in the comments below. And I didn't mention it earlier, and I have to get used to saying this more often, but if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe because it helps the YouTube algorithm reach more people. And that would help me as I attempt this journey with content creation. It's now been about a year or a little bit over a year, so it's not so bad. I just haven't been as consistent, and I want to be more consistent. But I only have so much time in my week, and I'm still working in medicine. So, yeah. Anyway, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.